This presentation is on the mineral iron and why it is an essential nutrient for the human body. In this presentation, I will be addressing some of the things that we can learn generally about iron. For example, what is iron? How does it function in the body? What are food sources of iron? How much should you get of it? Symptoms of deficiency and symptoms of toxicity, and some other fun and interesting things to learn about iron. I am sure that at some point in your life, you have used an object made of iron or have seen buildings welded together by it, or even have consumed iron. So what is iron exactly? It is one of the most abundant metals found in the Earth's core. It is an element on the periodic table containing 26 electrons and weighing 55.85 AMU. Its symbol is known as Fe. Some objects that you may be familiar that contain iron include cast iron skillets, which you can cook with, tools such as pipes, a hammer and screws, auto parts in cars, steel, which is used in construction for buildings, and stainless steel cutlery, appliances, magnets, paints and ink contain it, and something that we use almost daily is the iron that we use to iron our clothes. If iron is a metal used to make cars and buildings, then what is it doing in our bodies? Will ingesting iron turn us into Iron Man or Man of Steel? I am sure that iron does not turn us into Iron Man or the Man of Steel, by which we can see on this slide. We will find that there are some major functions of iron in our bodies for it to function normally. Some of those things include transporting oxygen to our tissues and organs via hemoglobin. Iron makes up the red blood cell called hemoglobin, giving it its red color. It's part of some enzymes which help the enzyme in carrying out its function. It helps in energy metabolism producing ATP. Iron is part of a catalyst in citric acid cycle and also aids in the electron transport chain. Iron is also a component of metabolizing alcohol in the liver. Something to note that isn't located here on the slide is that iron can indirectly help with immune function due to its ability to transport oxygen to the body. So if iron plays such an essential role in the body's capacity to function normally, how can we get enough of it, and can we get too much? Iron can be found in many food sources. There are two types of dietary iron known as heme iron and non-heme iron. Heme iron can be found in animal products such as beef, poultry, fish, and pork. Heme iron is more bioavailable compared to non-heme iron, which means that the body can absorb more of it. Some examples of the non-heme iron include fortified cereals, spinach, beans, and molasses, with many other products. If you eat non-heme iron and you want to increase its bioavailability in the body, you can actually eat it with a heme source of iron, such as spinach with chicken or lentils with fish. You can see that it's very interesting to note that beef only contains 2.4 milligrams of iron compared to spinach, which contains 3.2 milligrams of iron. However, when you look at spinach, because it is a non-heme iron source, you actually aren't absorbing all 3.2. Although beef contains less iron in its food, in its composition, you actually get more of the 2.4 compared to the spinach. However, like I mentioned before, if you want to get more of that 3.2 milligrams from the spinach, you can eat it with beef. Some other options which I found really interesting when I was looking into this is that you can also increase iron absorption with the consumption of vitamin C. This helps the body be able to absorb more of it, and if you happen to consume dairy with your iron-containing food, the calcium can actually inhibit the body's ability to absorb it. So what is recommended, or something to keep in mind, if you happen to be concerned about iron absorption, or if you are on the verge of becoming iron deficient, or let's say you're a vegetarian, you may want to save your dairy for another meal rather than consuming it with your iron-containing meal. Now, how can we get iron into our bodies? Now that we know how to get it into our bodies, How much does your body actually need? Take a minute to look at this graph. This graph shows how much iron is needed throughout the lifespan according to gender. Females are marked by the brown/purple color and males are marked with the green color. You can see that the needed amount of iron varies quite a bit during different stages of the life cycle. Infants require more than toddlers. Young children require more than toddlers and older children. Adolescents require even more than children, and older adults require less, while pregnant women require the most. Depending on your age and stage in life, you may want to refer to the CDC's website to look up the amount your body needs, known as the RDA or Recommended Daily Allowance. The reason iron needs vary so much is due to the stages of growth and development throughout the lifespan. Young children are increasing in height, adolescents go through growth spurts, and girls start to have their menstruation cycles, which impact their need for their iron due to blood loss. Pregnant women need the most iron in order to supply her own body with enough blood and a growing fetus. The placenta also requires a lot of blood, so her iron intake is the most. If you aren't pregnant, most of us would fall in the category of 19 to 51 years of age, which would mean that females need about 18 milligrams of iron per day and males would need about 8 milligrams of iron. If you don't get the required amount of iron daily, you may end up developing an iron deficiency. There are 3 stages of iron deficiency. In stage 1, when you aren't consuming enough iron daily, your body doesn't really show any overt symptoms of deficiency because the body does its best to compensate from the extra stores from the blood, from the liver, and the bone, and it actually increases absorption from the small intestine. So the body helps to get what it's take from what you're getting in the diet. However, if your lack of iron consumption continues for a period of time, or if you fall ill, you may actually enter into stage 2 deficiency, known actually as iron deficiency. This is when the body has used up its stores and it starts to affect the body's ability to synthesize new red blood cells called hemoglobin. At this point, hemoglobin starts to decrease, and it can actually decrease to the point of iron deficiency anemia. In stage 3, iron deficiency anemia, the symptoms are apparent because the body is unable to make enough blood cells to sustain the major functions in the body, such as transporting oxygen and producing energy from metabolism. We addressed this when we went over the functions of the body. So if you're not getting enough oxygen or not getting enough energy, you may notice symptoms of breathlessness, fatigue from inability to create energy, poor exercise performance because the body isn't able to deliver oxygen to your muscles in order to contract. You'll also notice cognitive impairment, again from lack of oxygen going to the brain at this point. And it can decrease your immune function, which may lead to frequent illness. Children are especially sensitive to iron deficiency in the fact that it will decrease their growth and it will impair their cognitive development. And they actually become the greatest victims of iron deficiency anemia. So be sure if you're pregnant to consume enough for your developing fetus, and if you have children, be sure to be paying attention to these symptoms to see if you need to get their blood tested and take them to the doctor. These symptoms can be very problematic. However, don't freak out too much in fear of becoming deficient to the point of overcompensating by consuming large quantities of iron. Just as too little iron can be harmful for the body, so is too much iron harmful for the body. Too much iron consumption can lead to iron overload or toxicity. You can tell if you're getting too much iron, which can lead to toxicity if you are getting more than 45 milligrams a day. The CDC has set an upper limit to prevent toxicity, and that is 45 milligrams. So remember, an adult man requires 8 milligrams per day. You can see that 45 milligrams is over 5.5 times greater than the recommended dose. To get 45 milligrams of iron is pretty hard to get through foods. Remember, that piece of chicken only had around 2 to 3 milligrams of iron. You'd have to eat over 10 pieces of chicken even greater than that in order to get over 45 milligrams. So it's hard to consume in the diet. However, many today take supplements that would push someone over that level of toxic levels. You can definitely see this as a parent, and it is a problem for children especially, because the leading cause of iron poisoning in children is from consuming too many gummy supplements. So if you are taking a supplement, you want to pay attention to symptoms of iron poisoning, such as nausea, vomiting, stomach aches, diarrhea, and other mineral deficiencies such as zinc. Because if you start to experience these symptoms, you'll want to go ahead and talk to your doctor and go about it that way to see what your doctor recommends. If you haven't already learned something interesting about iron from this presentation, let me tell you a couple more things before I finish. I mentioned that iron deficiency can lead to iron deficiency anemia. But did you know that iron anemia is not the only type of blood anemia out there? There are 3 types of anemia, and it is actually determined by the size of the red blood cell produced from the anemia. There is microcytic, normocytic, and macrocytic anemias. Microcytic is actually a small red blood cell, normocytic is a normal size blood cell, and macrocytic is when a blood cell is too big. The type of cell that iron deficiency anemia produces is the microcytic cell, which means that it makes small cells. The reason that iron deficiency leads to smaller red blood cells is that there is a lack of heme in order to make a full red blood cell, which requires 4 hemes to form hemoglobin. When 4 hemes aren't available from iron, the red blood cell settles for less than 4 hemes, such as 3 or 2 in a red blood cell. That causes a reduction in size. So why is the cell size important for us to know? It allows doctors to be able to diagnose your anemia appropriately in order to prescribe the right treatment. And if you would like to learn more about microcytic or other types of anemia, visit Khan Academy on YouTube and you will be blown away by the amount of information available for you to learn. So the next time that you decide to cook up some steak, to eat cereal, or iron your clothes, think of all of the ways iron is contributing to your health, how it gets absorbed, how much you need daily, and all the ways you can keep learning about it. Thank you for watching.